And now, from the Room 111 studios, it's Hacking Engagement with James Sternovich.
Well, hey there, listener, and welcome back to the Hacking Engagement podcast. I like to think of this program as a little bit like Amazon.com. And what I mean by that is that I believe a lot of times in just-in-time inventory. So I'll tape a show on Tuesday and by gosh, it's live on Wednesday. That's just the way I am. You know, particularly in the summertime, man. I'm thinking, am I in a school mode or not? Well, because I know how I get in the summertime, in the month of May, I taped a whole bunch of episodes just in case summertime rolled around and I was a little slow on the uptake. I knew I was going on vacation a couple times. I knew I would get kind of leisurely. So this episode was actually taped back the last week of May, and I'm talking about the end of school and all that stuff. So don't get lost in the chronology of events. And something else, this was before I took my trip to Massachusetts, which I did a couple weeks ago. So I'm talking about going to Massachusetts in the episode. So don't get confused by that. Now, if one were to make a list of essential educator skills for the 21st century, certainly collaboration with students would be near the top. So this episode features a collaboration expert. Ann Coates, the pride of Hanover, Massachusetts, is a veteran high school teacher. And is all about giving timely and meaningful feedback to kids. She states that instant feedback is, get this, where the action is. And I agree with her. This attention-grabbing statement got me thinking. I get feedback from colleagues and administrators all the time. Some of it welcome. Jim, that was awesome. Some of it not so welcome. Jim, you need to improve your essential questions. In regard to constructive criticism like that last statement, unless I act promptly upon it, I tend to forget it. So give your kids timely feedback and then encourage them to act upon it. That's what Ann's all about. Additionally, deliver feedback in a 21st century fashion. When I was young, when I was a student, I rarely read red pen comments written in the margins of my research papers. I checked the grade, which was the information I cared about, and then I just kind of blew the other stuff off. I'll wager that you have a bevy of students like the young James Sternovich who don't read the important comments that you labored to write in the margins. Yeah, it's frustrating, but it is what it is, and perhaps you can adjust and use some more modern methods of delivering feedback. Utilize some of Ann's outstanding suggestions and watch kids begin to digest and then act upon some of your constructive and helpful feedback. And also watch the relationship that you have with those students start to evolve, which is crucial. Buckle up, man. You are going to love this episode. Hey, so get this, listener. My publisher contacts me and says, I love the way Hacking Engagement is selling. How about doing 50 more? I was all over it like a cheap suit. So the name of the book is Hacking Engagement Again, 50 Teacher Tools That Will Make Students Love Your Class, and it's going to be available on Amazon's virtual shelves in the late summer of 2017. In the meantime, if you're looking for more teacher empowerment resources, as always, visit hacklearning.org. Now let's get back to the solutions part of the Hacking Engagement podcast. So here we are in the Room 111 studios, and it's the last day of school, baby. What a wonderful thing the last day of school is. I mean, it makes adults feel like kids again. I have summer vacation to look forward to. Hallelujah. But I'm not here alone. I have a friend with me. Now, she's not with me. She's with me virtually. She's out in Hanover, Massachusetts. Her name is Ann Coates. Good morning, Ann Coates.
Good morning, Jim.
And, you know, check this out. Ann lives about 45 minutes south of Boston in a town called Hanover. And I was looking at WeatherBug today, and our weather's not very good. Neither's yours. You got about mid-50s and rainy. Is that what's going on?
Oh, yes. It's just not a nice spring day here.
Well, Ann, I got to ask you something. I got to ask you something really important. You live about 10 miles from the ocean, right?
About that, yeah.
Oh, excuse me. 15 minutes. We're talking from people from Massachusetts. Ohio people say miles. Massachusetts people say minutes. Is it 15 minutes?
About 15 minutes, yep.
All right. At what point in the year is your water not frigid enough for you to actually jump in?
I would say probably around August 20th. So at the very end of the summer. I know, it sounds funny. I guess it depends on what you call frigid, but yeah, I won't go in the water till August.
How about not feeling like you're in Navy SEALs training?
Well, I don't know. Probably end of July. I don't know. It's very chilly. Very chilly.
Well, listen, man. Anne's great. She is a veteran teacher. You've been at it for a couple decades. Teaches at a school called Hanover High School, about 20 minutes south of Boston, Mass. And the classes you teach sound fascinating. AP Psychology and a class with English teachers called Humanities. Talk about humanities. That sounds awesome.
Oh, humanities is awesome. I got to tell you. So it's a great course. All seniors take it, and they basically rotate each term. They take one of 3 teachers, and we each have a different sort of content and skill set that we teach. And then the last term, it culminates in a big senior capstone project that every senior presents in front of other students, teachers, community members, administrators, and all of those terms are building up to that capstone project. So it is a blast to teach. And I love my co-teachers, and it's just great fun. I teach the psychology of success in my piece.
That's cool.
Yeah, it's fun.
Well, now,
a lot of fun.
Now, if they're doing this big capstone project, that perfectly segues into what you and I are going to talk about today, which is this concept of feedback. Because I bet you have to give them a lot of feedback. You probably have to hold hands, and you have to kind of coach them through. Is that right?
Oh, absolutely. We start in January for a presentation that comes in May.
Oh, so brother. I have some procrastinators in my class. May probably seems like light years away. You probably have to, hey, have you done anything?
Well, we do. We have periodic check-ins, and we have, different forms they have to fill out along the way, and proposals and things like that. So there is a lot of feedback along the way, but the majority of the kids, they have to sort of time out themselves what they have to do. And we help them with that along the way.
Well, I think that kids from Massachusetts sound pretty motivated.
Well.
Okay, enough of that. Let's talk about this concept of feedback.
Okay.
What is meaningful, timely feedback?
Well, I think basically the timely piece of that is teachers responding to students' work and their, whether their skills or content in a quick fashion. But then the students can use that feedback right away to adjust, either relearn or review, or even enrich what they already know.
Okay, so we're talking about feedback. Why is it important?
Well, in class, I really think it's important to give that feedback in class because that's where the action is. You have this one moment in time that students can focus and teachers can adjust their instruction based on what students have given you. So, For example, in my AP Psych class, one of the kids' favorite units is social psychology, how we interact with others, which is great fun. And so to start the unit, I gave them a reading and a video lecture for homework. And then they came in the next day and they were able to take a Google form and answer a handful of questions that I created. And then I was able to see that feedback instantaneously, which is so great with our Google G Suite stuff. And I could adjust my instruction, go over information they didn't quite get, kind of maybe give them some enriching materials if they need it. You put them into groups so that each kind of group of kids had what they needed to review or relearn or enrich themselves on the information from the night before. So it's just the instantaneous feedback. I love that through Google Forms.
Sure. And then how do students benefit from timely feedback? How do they react?
I think it snaps them to attention, to be honest with you. They're not quite always used to that. They're able to say, oh, okay, I didn't read that part, or I only skimmed it and I missed that piece. So then they relearn it, or they hear it for the first time, maybe, some kids. And, one time when we were reviewing for the AP exam last month, they were able to go through this PowerPoint where they had a series of questions, and they were able to see if they got the questions right or wrong. Mm-hmm. And this is sort of what makes it fun in class. I created this review called Aristotle's Amygdala, which is about the founding of psychology, essentially the history of psychology. And they were able to sort of go through, and it was sort of a quirky, corny kind of story about Aristotle and all these different people that he met along the way, which were famous psychologists in history.
Oh, yeah.
And they could get that feedback right away to see if they knew this piece of psych history or they didn't. And then once they got through it, at the end, they were able to get a game board piece, like this virtual game board badge that they put on their virtual game board. And so not only did they get the review, but they had a little fun, even though they like to make fun of me about the names and stuff that I made. But yeah. So it was a good time, know, and then they were able to review.
And we need to get high tech here. I mean, because you're talking a lot of very interesting interaction, and you use this phrase called Google Suites, or G Suites it is. Mm-hmm. And, when I think of the suite life, I think of some type of glamorous existence. But
right.
We're not talking about that. We're talking about interacting with students. What are you referring to when you talk about the G Suites?
So G Suite is, Google Apps for Education. That's what it used to be called. Mm-hmm. And it's just a series of apps that you can use with students. So there's Google Docs, which a lot of people are familiar with. It works like word processing. Google Slides is the presentation. Mm-hmm. Google Forms allows students to answer questions. But these are interactive apps. These are the ones that I use the most. It allows you to communicate with students instantaneously, which is what I love. When they're writing an essay, I can go into their Google Doc and I can comment, move this here, or you got this fact incorrect, or review this, or research that, and they can respond right away. So it's really, in class, this is really, became a game changer for me.
Well, I can tell you that our school went to Google Classroom probably 2 years ago. I can't think of anything that has transformed my instruction more than Google. It's just awesome.
I would say I agree with that totally. It's a game changer, like I said.
And this is funny because I'll bet you had this experience too. Did you have to read 1984 as a young person?
Yes. We're not living it right now, are we?
So I'm reading this book, I don't know, decades ago, thinking this is terrifying. And we're kind of big brothery on these kids. But I think it's ultimately a positive thing. And kids seem to be cool with it, and that's important. Mm-hmm. So
it's definitely changed my teaching because you probably know this as a history teacher, like I would have stacks and stacks of essays to grade, and like they would just sit on my desk and I'd get to it, and I always try to keep them within a week or two, but things get in the way. When it's on the computer and it's right there, it just changes the instruction and the assessment amazingly.
And you don't lose them.
Yes, and you don't lose them. Exactly. And my desk is clear. I mean, I could not imagine. I work in piles.
Yeah.
I'm a time filer, so, it doesn't do that anymore.
You might have virtual piles now.
Right.
So we're talking technology. Let's get a little more specific. What apps do you use to provide feedback?
My two favorite here. One is Google Forms, and I use the go-to section feature in Google Forms. Based on the student answer, you can direct them to a section. So if they get their question correct, you can direct them to enriching activities that will extend their learning. If they get their question incorrect, you can direct them to the section where they can review the material. So I did this a lot for the AP review, and that worked out really well. And then in Docs, I love the comment feature where you can just highlight and click comment, and they can just comment that way. And then I try to always add a link to a YouTube video, which is bringing in another of the G Suite apps that will help them review the information.
Isn't this incredible?
It really is.
I mean, it makes education a lot of fun. And do you have teachers in your school building who are resistant to this?
Yes. But I would say resistant to parts.
Okay.
Or slow to move, not putting up barriers totally. But, if you have something that works for you for 20 years, you're going to want to stick with that. But I always say it's going to save you time, more time in your personal life, more time in your professional life. So we've kind of done a series of trainings to help teachers sort of come along.
And wouldn't you also say that it's really relational? Mm-hmm. And, I mean, I'm interacting with kids at 11 o'clock at night. Hey, you need to change this, whatever. Then we get a conversation going back and forth. Mm-hmm. And also it's collaborative. Mm-hmm. And also it's just the way things are going.
It is.
So you might as well jump on board.
It is. And I think that the teachers who have been resistant ultimately sort of come along in their own way, which is really great because it's hard for people to change, and mm-hmm. if it works for them, I'm happy to help in any way that I can. But I think it's definitely a learning curve for a lot of us.
Well, promise me that if you ever do any professional development with some of the reluctant teachers, you find a room 101 in your building and conduct it there.
Yes. Definitely.
Okay. Ann Coates, give teachers one piece of advice as we say sayonara to the Bay State.
I would say that everything, whether you're using technology for feedback or you're doing face-to-face conferencing, everything is about relationships.
Yeah.
And build the relationships with the kids in and out of class that will just engage and up the learning all the more.
Beautiful. Beautiful. The better relationship you have, the more receptive they are to mm-hmm. suggestions.
Absolutely. But isn't that the case all around? Kids, adults, whatever.
Yes, very good. Ann, you've been wonderful. I love talking to you. And I'm going to be in Boston this summer with the lovely wife. We just might have to eat some lunch.
I think, do you like seafood? Do you like lobster?
You know what? I always feel sorry for the lobster.
Well, then don't come to my house on the 4th of July because we have a big lobster bake with clams and any kind of
Maybe I'm going to the wrong place. I just I feel sorry for the lobster. Isn't that ridiculous?
Well, I was just going to say, if you do like it, you should have a good New England lobster sandwich.
Well, what the heck, man? I'm not going to do a protest or anything. I think when in Rome, you just got to do like the Romans.
I think you'll love it. It's going to be great. I hope you have a chance to get to know the city because it's just beautiful. And it's a great walking city, so bring your walking shoes.
Amen, sister. Take care. I love talking to you. So here we are at the What You Can Do Tomorrow section. Job number 1, just take tomorrow's lesson and divide it into tasks that need to be evaluated. Next, you want to create opportunities to provide feedback on these tasks. It could be peer feedback, self-reflection, or direct feedback from you, but incorporate that in your lesson plan. Next, you want to dedicate some time during the lesson for students to act upon that feedback. And finally, direct kids to resubmit and get additional advice. Collaborating with kids is essential. Use Ann's outstanding feedback strategies to build relationships and student learning. And good luck tomorrow engaging your students.
Show notes for this episode can be found at jamesallensturnevant.com. If you enjoy Hacking Engagement, please subscribe, rate, and review us on iTunes.